Well, howdy. It's so good to be with you today. Welcome to the special Leadership Fireside session of ExecuNet Masterclass. I'm your host, Tony Vlahos. How can we become leaders who inspire, uplift, and bring out the best in us all? This is the really deep question before us today. And for answers, we are going to consult not the magic 8 ball, but the magic cup, which is the beautiful new book written by Howard Behar. Along the way, we're going to learn about the author's remarkable career journey and life. And my hope is that our time together today will inspire and motivate you to think a little differently about how you work, lead, and live. I think it will. It's part of our commitment here at ExecuNet to connect you with higher value thinking from the world's most trusted advisors. So Howard, tell us about the character attributes that Vince Steadfast, who's the CEO in the Parable, required or learned were required in outstanding leaders. What are those core lessons that we can all pick up from the book?
Well, trust.
Hmm.
Give trust before you get trust. I always believe that you automatically have to trust your people, not distrust them. And too often in life, our leaders say, "Well, you have to earn my trust." No, the leader has to earn his people's trust or her people's trust first. It's not the other way around. And so that was part of it. Caring. A lot of times leaders say that they care. And, you've heard that term, people are our most important asset. Whenever I hear that, I cringe. And I used to use it too, so I'm just as guilty, but I don't anymore. Because people are not assets. People are human beings. Assets always give you what you expect. If you buy a truck, you know, and you take care of the truck, you put oil in it and gas in it and you service it, right? If you turn the key, it usually always starts. People never give you what you expect. Sometimes they give you more, sometimes they give you less, but you have to understand that's the way of life. And you know, people people we're fragile. We make mistakes. And leaders have to understand that that's part of the journey. I've never heard a leader when one of their people came in with a brand new $1 million order say, "Well, don't ever do that again."
Hmm.
You know, they love
Right.
that. They like that. They like that unpredictability. But when something happens wrong, then they're yelling and screaming. You got to take the good and the bad together. You can fix the things that go wrong, but you do it with love in your heart and with caring and treating
Hmm.
people as human beings, not assets. Um, the other thing I think is really important is this vulnerability, and you hear it used the word a lot. Authenticity and vulnerability, but I mean real vulnerability. That means that you're willing to share your deepest, darkest concerns and worries with your people. You don't hide, and you let them know that you're a human being too, that you have fears just like they have, and those are just three of the things that I think make a huge difference in an organization. And we see when it doesn't happen. We see what happens to organizations. There's organizations in my city that big organizations, huge organizations that have been wildly successful economically, and where their leaders are saluted, but their leaders weren't worthy of those being saluted. They were abusive, and what happened when they left, their company didn't do anything for a long period of time. As a matter of fact, it fell in on itself until a new leader was appointed that really started caring about his or her
Hmm.
people. And it really makes a difference.
I'm getting this question from, actually it was sent to me earlier today by the president of a retail company based in the Northeast. And he's read your book and did have this question, which is, how do you really teach these things to leaders, whether they're new leaders or old established heads of companies? Is there, quote, a magical equation is the word or the term that he used. But I think the fundamental question is, how much and how could this or these 11 virtues in the book best be taught?
Well, you live them.
Hmm.
Look, every company has a culture, and every company has values and guiding principles, whether they're written down or not. What are the things that get rewarded? Not what are said to get rewarded, but what are the real things that get rewarded? Do people get rewarded just for producing economic results, but they could be abusive to people? then that is what goes through a company. People start to realize it doesn't make any difference how I treat other people as long as I turn in the numbers. And so the way people learn this stuff is primarily through practice and through example. So if you're a CEO of a company and you say people are our most important asset and I really care about people, but at the end of the day the only thing that matters is the economic results, people learn from that. You know, it's just like our children. They don't, people don't. Children look at what you do, not at what you say. There's an adage that I have on my office wall. People don't care how much you know; they want to know how much you care.
Mm.
And that's the same way in a company. Now, you can have education and development programs for your people, and you should talk and really talking about values and how those values turn into actions and how you make decisions with those values. Too often, you might have, even if you've written down what your values or your guiding principles, there's nothing behind those. They're just words. And you have to turn those values into actions. And then you have to reward and recognize the actions that you want. And so from the littlest tiny things, like caring about other people, Starbucks had this system that we called, oh, good, there it went. Well, anyway, it was about catching people doing the little things right. And if you did something to help another human being, anybody could give you a little card that said thank you. And people would love those little cards. And it accentuated in the company. So it was just practice makes perfect. And then holding people accountable. It was hard to get fired at Starbucks if you missed your numbers. But you would get blown out of there if you treated people with disrespectfully and you didn't care about your people and you didn't show that you cared and you were abusive to your people. I don't care what your position was in the company. We had executive vice presidents that would get fired because of how they treated their people, not because they weren't getting the results, but because of how they treated people. And so that's what matters is what you do in your organization, not what you say. And you just have to all the time, the minute you let that go, the minute you let one of your executives get away with something that they shouldn't get away with in terms of how they treat their people, then you automatically have broken trust with your people, and it takes forever to get it back.
Mm. This tells us a whole lot about the culture you helped build there, Howard.